Hello and welcome to your final assignment, just a little bit of a tutorial just to make sure we're all on the same page about what's going on for your final project. So if we look at the first part of your paper that you're going to be doing this week, it says test plan and general considerations. So first you're going to have to name your test. It can be anything. That could be 6th grade geography or 6th grade geography over Mesopotamia. Whatever you happen to be testing over, just give it a name. And the purpose and the intended uses for the test. Is this going to be a formative test, a summative test? Well, hopefully it's a summative test. But why are you using it? Is it tied to standards? Is it tied to district standards? Is it tied to whatever that you're using? Why are you doing this? You're going to have characteristics of the person who the test is intended. 6th grader, second semester, whatever those kind of things are, put it in your description, because what you are doing is creating a test, and you want this test to be the same if you give it or if the 6th grade teacher in another district gives it. You want to try to make this test as valid and reliable as possible. So you try to keep everything that would keep it from being valid and reliable out of the situation. So you have to explain who takes this test, and after what? After they've taken a certain unit in study. Tell us about that. It doesn't have to be long, but just give that description. Then the learning conditions. As we just said, what have they been exposed to? 10 days of instruction, 15 days of instruction. They've had so many of activities. Just describe what the people in that class have done. Then description of how the test specification was developed, the sources, the persons consulted. Maybe it's, you used your textbook that is provided by the school district, which is the deemed correct curriculum for your school. That is your specification. You don't have to go into a lot of detail there, but just think about that. Also, a statement justifying the particular objectives and number of items shown on the test. So we're kind of having some confusion between 10 and 20. You could do 5 questions, but that 5 questions might test 4 different things, which would be actually 20 different items. So, don't just think very concretely that we have to have 10 questions. Think about, what are the things I'm testing? If you have a question that has 2 things in it, like they have to write 2 different names in there, that's actually 2 different objectives, that are 2 different names. So you might be making 2 different objectives. You have to think about that. So don't just think concretely, I have 10 items. Think, I have 20 items, but I have 10 questions. So think about that when you're creating your test. Don't be so hung up on, I need 10 questions, I need 20 questions. Some of you might have 5 questions. Some of you might have 20 questions. Perfectly fine. But I will tell you, when it comes to testing, usually less is not great. So 20 different questions, where they be multiple choice, true, false, a mixture of those would be your best thing for having statistics that you can actually look at and kind of measure for your test. So think about that when you're creating your test. Okay. Also, it says statement justifying the particular objectives and number of items shown on the test specification. So why are you asking this question? Well, it matches this objective. Okay, number 9, estimate the amount of time examinees need to complete the test. Remember, if you are in school district A and school district B is going to give your test, they need to know how long to give it for. Is it over 1 class session? Is it a 30-minute class session? Is it a 2-hour class session? It needs to be listed, because that is part of the validity and the reliability of your test, is how long the students have to take it. If I have 2 hours, I might be able to do things a lot differently than if I have 20 minutes. So just think about those kind of things. So preliminary version of the test. Number 1, describe how your items were developed. How did you develop them? Were there some questions in your book that helped you, derive these questions? Was it from a self-made test that you and your team made together at the grade level? Describe it. Describe how alternatives were chosen for the multiple choice answers. Remember, we talked about those distractors before. Are they crazy, or are they really realistic answers that could, be plausible for the student to pick? Number 3, name the person who have edited these items. on the tryout version and discuss the person's contribution. So, as I said before when I talked to you all, it is perfectly fine to let another teacher look at your test. Maybe it's somebody at your grade level. Maybe it's somebody, in your school. You could also just email it to each other. That's perfectly fine. That is not cheating. That is using your resources and using people who are in the educational community to help you. That's what we do in education. So that's perfectly fine. Also, so the persons that you tried out the version, remember you are not, I repeat, not giving this test to any student. You cannot do that, because if you did, we would have to go through the IRB board, which some of you know what I'm talking about there. It is a long process, and if you are dealing with children, you have to have permission from parents to do it. You are not supposed to be doing this with your classroom students. You will be making your own test. And then the tryout version of the test, number 4, describe the nature of any revisions. So, maybe wording, anything that you kind of saw that maybe you should change. Number 5, the tryout version, including the directions for administration, the answer sheet, and the answer key. Pretty self-explanatory there. Then preliminary procedures, how the sample was obtained. So just explain that. Number 2, describe the preliminary test administration procedures and any special problems that could be encountered. Maybe you had a child that threw up during the test. That would be a special problem, and that might totally invalidate the entire test. Number 3, describe the data collection process. How did you do it? Did you make a chart? Did you make a checklist? How did you collect the data? Okay, then item revision. Present item analysis. Look at the item. Is it really testing what it's supposed to be testing, or are your students guessing the correct answer? Or, is it an essay and they seem to be missing this one concept repeatedly even though you asked for it? Well, maybe we didn't teach it. So you need to look at the item. Look how many people took it. If you have scores for 20 people, you would have 20 different people who took that question. Well, if 15 of the students in your class missed it, it's not a good question, because only 5 got it right. So that would be a really good indicator that question needs to be changed. Number 2, summarize the results of the item analysis. So you're going to go through each question or each objective and go through, did they get it? Did they not get it? And you're going to be looking at scoring each one. So say you have 20 people in your class that took this test. You're going to say on question 5, 18 got it right. Well, the 2 that got it wrong, did they pick the same thing? If they did, why did they pick that? Try to think about that, why those 2 kids picked that. Or if 5 kids got it wrong and they all picked the same distractor, maybe you need to look at it. Okay. Summarize those results. Describe the general plan you used to select the final 20 items. So after you went through that preliminary, look at this analysis. Maybe you say, okay, question 8 and question 13 are not good. I'm going to rewrite them, and this is what I'm going to do. The revised item to be included in the final form. Describe the match between these items and the original test. So show what you had and how you changed it. Number 6, list the numbers of the items to appear on the test form and indicate their corresponding item numbers from the tryout version. So basically just showing the first part to revision. Number 7, for the tryout data for these 10 items to estimate the mean of the final test form. That's the average of the test scores. The standard deviation, and the reliability and the standard error of measurement. These are all things I went over in the last tutorial. So, and also look at Appendix F in your book. It's really great for these. There's also some charts on standard error of measurement where you can look and find out where yours falls for that data. The final version of the test. Include a final copy and a final version with the answer sheet. As you can see there, the characteristics. Describe the characteristics of the sample. There were 20 children, 12 males, 8 females, just different descriptive characteristics about the students who took it, your exam. Compare this group with the stated target population. Is it the same? Or did you give it to 7th graders and you really want to give this to 6th graders? Tell me. Present item analysis data. Just like we talked about before. Tell me about them, the difficulty. Is this good difficulty for the grade level you're teaching, or is it too easy? Think about it. Number 4, prepare a frequency distribution of test scores and obtain percentile norms. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to have what we call a bell curve. And a bell curve I will discuss in another little video that I'm going to put up here in just a little bit. But I'm just going to kind of talk about the standard deviation, the means, and all that in that video. So we're going to skip and we'll go on to that in just a little bit. All right. So, summary of the statement, describe, what you learned, the problems you encountered, the insights. It's not long, 1 page, references, etc. Okay. Then you have the assignment 2 that's due this week, and it says content or the content of the chart, things that needs to be in it. I would do the exact same test again, and this information would be going in to assignment 2. Because just like I showed you in the last video that I did, a pre and a post test, or it had a test 1 and a test 2, that would be a pre and a post test with at least 10 students. All right, so the pre-test would be the baseline data, how they did before. So usually if you're going to have baseline data for a pre-test, students are not going to get a high score because you have to teach them something. So that's really important. So that's what I would be looking at in a pre-test. So, say they got 5 out of the 20 things. Great, that means most of the students know a few things, but you have a lot of teaching left there to do. And then you want to see what they can do in their last one. Remember, you're making up all this data, so you can be a stellar teacher and teach them all kinds of great things. But you need to have that data in the pre-test and the data in the post-test columns, like I showed you in the Excel sheet. All right, so it must be telling me like when the date was given. Maybe you give it a month apart because your unit is a month long. All right, then the chart should also include a ceiling score, the top score a student can obtain. This could be 100%, for instance, so, that's pretty explanatory. You need 2 or 3 paragraphs of this performance of the class as a whole from your chart. Is there modifications or modifications that need to be implemented to the entire class? Did the entire class not understand a specific objective? So if they all missed number 9, why? Is there something going on that is keeping those kids from doing that certain objective? You'll analyze the positive and negative change in a student's progress. Hopefully they don't have a negative change, but it has happened, believe me, I've seen it, where they might get like an 85 on the pretest and they got a 70 on the post-test, so they actually lost things. So if that happens, you'll have to explain it. But also positive change as well. Well, I taught these certain objectives, that's why there was a positive change. Number 6, any student who needs individualized attention for areas of deficit should be noted in several paragraphs. I would choose at least 2 students who have some sort of need that needs to be met. It can be a high student, it can be a low student. You might have a gifted student. That is actually also what we would consider a child who would need an accommodation, because they actually fall under that same umbrella. So it doesn't always have to be a child who is struggling in the lower part of it. All right, I hope this kind of helps explain a little bit about what to do for the assignment. As I said, I'm going to do one more video and I'm going to show you bell curves and how that works here in just a little bit, but I hope this kind of helps clear up a little bit of the confusion. One more note, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the technical manual. Don't be thinking that you have to write me 20 pages. It just needs to be the manual that shows somebody how to give the test exactly like you give the test. Write the directions so somebody could follow it, whether they are, in your classroom or 300 miles away. All right? I hope this helps you, and I look forward to seeing your great projects. Thanks. Bye.